Hey, I'm Kathy Zalewski. I'm a realtor in Bozeman, Montana with Realty One Group Peak. And this is my good friend and colleague, Kaila Hart.
Hi.
She's also with Realty One Group Peak. But most important today, our guest is Emily Kennedy from Stockman Bank here in Bozeman. She is a lender. And we thought we have a couple different, we're going to throw out a couple videos with Emily today. But we thought one thing that is super cool and much needed and usually not very well known is the whole aspect of lending to somebody or getting through a divorce process in terms of how that affects your mortgage and so forth. And Emily's going to make that make more sense for us. So, Emily.
Yes.
How are you today?
I am great.
Good. That is a lot. And I usually do that, so don't be worried.
Okay.
So, Emily, you are a certified divorce lender.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
a certified divorce lending professional.
Okay.
So maybe tell us what that means.
Yeah. So it is an additional certification I've completed in addition to just kind of being a regular mortgage lender as well. I do continuing ed each year and kind of keep my certification current. But more importantly than the continuing ed is I end up working with a lot of divorcing clients, and I think experience is better than any training you can usually have. And so
I would agree on that.
it's kind of beget itself a little bit too, where I started having the certification and letting people know I had it, and then I also started working a lot more with divorcing clients, and at this point have a lot of experience with a lot of different scenarios and add a lot of value there for my clients.
And so what makes a certified divorce lender so much different than, let's say, your traditional lender?
Or why would one who is going through divorce seek somebody out with your certification?
Yeah. And so, it takes two main things. One of them is you need somebody compassionate and kind to meet with you, to understand that this is a really difficult, hard time in somebody's life, and kind of keeping that at the forefront is really, really important. But in addition to that, if you do kind of remove the emotional parts of what a divorce is, in a lot of ways, it's splitting up income, it's splitting up assets, it's dividing a lot of aspects of your life, if not all.
Right.
And as kind of a coincidence, those are all the things I have to look at in order to qualify somebody for a mortgage. Right. Your income, your assets, what you're trying to buy next, things like that are all tied exactly to your divorce are also the things that I'm ultimately going to need to be aware of and review. Right. And so having me involved, someone who's very experienced with it and versed in some of the more intricate parts of the divorcing process and potential implications, the better I do at advising a client on those things early, the better their divorce goes and the smoother the process at the end, which ultimately is likely ending up in some other new housing or keeping the house that they've been in. The approval process at the end is so much smoother if I can help people kind of understand how they could potentially structure their divorce and what things to watch out for while they're going through their divorce.
Right.
Most people don't think of a mortgage lender as like their first call when they're going through a divorce, but I would encourage people to maybe potentially put it on their list.
And so, how early would you say that is? Like, you're getting divorced.
Yeah.
When are you calling you?
As early as possible, honestly. A lot of times I'll have people meet with me before they even alert their spouse that they would like to seek a divorce.
So, okay. So early. Maybe even before you tell your lawyers.
Sometimes you'll see people who are really working to gather information before they kind of want to know some things before they kind of upend their life and start the process and notify their spouse.
Well, because housing can be one of your biggest, I'm going to say, concerns. It's a real big thing to move on from.
Yep.
And knowing you can.
Yep.
Well, okay. So so first call, maybe the attorney, second call, Emily.
Yep.
And I think that what she alluded to is in terms of structure, it's just like how you structure your taxes. You kind of come to the point where while you and your spouse or soon to be ex-spouse might be regular, W-2 employees at, let's say, the hospital, right? You're, nurse and doctor, either way, whichever, no gender specifics. But anyway, you're both used to W-2 kind of income, right? The reality is when you go through a divorce, consider yourself 1099s. Now it becomes important how you structure what that income, what those assets look like, which is something that as independent contractors, Kaila and I are very used to. How you structure what your income looks like can dictate whether or not you can buy a
What
house.
you can qualify for.
So what Emily will help you do is kind of change probably your perspective on how all these things look, and your income will change. Let's say one of you is going to have primary custody of the kids, but you're not fully employed. You have a part-time job. Well, custody of the kids, you're going to have income that needs to be structured in a way that will benefit you so that you can buy your next house.
Yep.
And that might not be on your mind when you're talking with your attorneys about how your spouse is going to pay you for taking care of the kids or whatever that is.
Yep. Yeah. And so you're right. You have kind of your traditional income sources. If we go to work here, we know about that. But when we get into things like alimony and spousal maintenance and child support and things like that, those are going to be new sources of income. And one of the biggest things that people don't know is a lot of times you have to demonstrate a history of receiving that income before you're able to use it to buy a house. Many sources of that type of income require you to have received it for at least 6 months or so. And so if you don't know that and you're fresh out of your divorce and you haven't talked to me yet, I've had people come to me who are like, okay, I'm done with my divorce, I'm getting child support, and I have to say, I'll see you in 6 months, which is at a minimum, we want people to be aware of that from the onset, or potentially look at getting temporary orders put in place to get a small amount of child support being paid by the other spouse while the divorce is still being finalized. Even if it was $5 a month, we're starting the timeline. They'd never know that if they didn't have an early conversation with me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd be kind of just, hey, bad news. I'm like, yes, we can totally use that income. I'll see you in October.
And so again, that's why you say call me as soon as you know,
as possible.
because we want to start setting up this history, this proof to then help you that when everything's finalized, you can hit the ground running versus having to scramble or find an ideal.
And my job I'm not writing your divorce decree. My job is to be the mortgage expert to say, did you know these are the rules? Then they can kind of be that much more informed as they're negotiating with their ex and understanding if that's a possibility, or at a minimum, their expectations are managed so that it's not a shock, not a big kind of devastating surprise at the end of it, even if they're not able to establish a timeline early.
I'm so excited. But so that brings up another great question.
Yeah.
That are you willing to meet with my divorce attorney to help them? I imagine that they're not really, their concern is not how this is structured to make somebody look like they've got more income. It's more just this income is here and this, but do you get involved? I know you're not an attorney, but do you consult?
I do consult, and that's actually honestly probably the best word for what I'm doing at the early process of the divorce anyway.
Okay.
We're not really doing any transactions until the divorce is finalized.
Right.
And there's some rules around that we can get into a little bit as to why. But the big thing is, yes, I do consult. Yep, we have communication with the attorneys. Attorneys are pretty busy, and a lot of times they're not. We don't always end up all in the same room as each other and kind of spitballing good ideas.
Right.
It's more often that I'm like, here's several things based on your specific situation that you might want to bring up to your attorney the next time you're able to connect with them.
Okay.
And so it can be more of make sure you look into these 3 things that are kind of unique to you that may be helpful to you. And a lot of times then, we'll have they'll talk to me, they'll then talk to the attorney, maybe come back to me with some more ideas or clarifying questions. But
so I feel like you also, you brought something up when Emily came and gave a presentation in her office, and so some of this is reminding me of different things. But you said something about so one spouse has got the wherewithal, income, assets, whatever, to go out and buy another property during the divorce.
Yep.
I feel like you're no. That was a big no-no, because suddenly that becomes community property.
It could potentially, it's not community property in Montana, but it's similar to that, which is assets acquired throughout the
marriage.
course of the marriage could potentially. So you go out and buy a condo for cash a week before your divorce is finalized. If your spouse is vindictive,
Sure.
if their attorney is advising them to do so, they could ask you to buy out half of that asset because you acquired it over the course of the marriage and potentially used assets that were joint in order to do so. And so and not only that, but there can also be restrictions from a title standpoint. If you have formally filed for divorce and you're still in the negotiating part of things, but you've formally filed with an attorney, there will most likely be a judgment hanging out from a title perspective that will stop you from potentially selling real estate or acquiring new real estate. You may end up being unable to do so, even if you were like, no, my wife would never come after the condo. You still may not even be able to from a title standpoint.
Yeah.
So curious, what are the things that can be done, or are there specific products for people that are going through divorce where, hey, we both have moved out of the house. I would like to buy this property, or I have an opportunity to buy this property. Is there anything that you can do? What would you do in that situation?
Yeah. I mean, generally my process when I'm meeting with anybody who's going through a divorce, and some divorces are very amicable and I end up meeting with both spouses or each one individually, sometimes together, depending on the situation. And other times they're going through attorneys, they're absolutely not communicating it directly at all. But depending, in any scenario, my role is to provide information that may help them structure things to give them a smooth landing at the end. And I work really hard to pre-qualify people to carry out the terms that they're agreeing to on their divorce. So if person A is agreeing to buy out their spouse and keep the house, I'm going to pre-qualify them to do that. We're going to make sure they qualify to do the thing they're agreeing to.
Okay.
And so I'm going to treat them just like someone else who comes in who wants to buy a house. I'm going to say, here's what this would look like if you did this. Here's a few scenarios. Here's a few different loan options that you may want to take advantage of. I'm going to give them the same, education and treatment that I would to someone seeking a traditional mortgage outside of a divorce, because we're going to give them options and give them a really good idea of what the monthly payment would look like. Make sure they qualify for it, because the worst thing is when people come in, they've already agreed to the divorce and they're not able to carry out the terms because they didn't actually check to see.
I would think that couldn't happen.
You'd think,
clearly
but it happens all the time.
Can happen.
Most people don't talk to the mortgage lender early. They kind of come in and say, well, this is what I've agreed to do. And sometimes I'm going to work really hard to find a way to get it all done.
Yeah.
But often, if we're kind of scrambling, are we making the best plan for you? Yeah. Are we just creating more stress after a very stressful divorce? Now I'm kind of trying to shove a square peg into a round hole, so to speak. Yeah. Or if we make a plan early, we either find out we can't, or we could, but we really don't like the terms of how it would all look, and ultimately agree to do something different.
Yeah. What happens? Okay, so I'm going to buy out my spouse.
Yep.
Oh, whoops. I can't. So then the house just has to get sold.
Well, or they have to go back to court. Ugh. I mean, it can be, exactly. So again,
and that's just more expense, right? Because an attorney has to accompany you to court.
Or, my husband's going to buy me out and I'm going to buy something else. Well, maybe you guys bought a house when interest rates were really low.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the new mortgage you're going to get is very different than how things look for you at the moment, the house you're potentially giving up. And so again, if I'm educating people early, if I'm giving them the full picture of, okay, we're basically again pre-qualifying you to get divorced, they're going to get the info they need in order to actually proceed and understand what they're agreeing to.
Well, and that can help somebody decide whether a settlement works for them as well on I'm going to say the high and low side. Let's say they're tired of fighting. Can I get by with this much? And can this be over?
Yep.
Or do I really need to continue to fight, and is it worth my time and energy and emotional toll to continue to seek what I really, really need? Because I do, in fact, need this to carry on my life,
Right.
where I'm living and what I'm providing for my children or whoever and whatever.
Well, and I'm so sorry, because this is how my brain works. Sudden light bulb moment. So like your divorce certification isn't necessarily about any specific or different loan product. It's for getting people on the front side, because ultimately if they're buying a new home at the end of the divorce, one or the other or both or whatever, basically that's a regular product.
The loan programs are the same.
Right. That's
You're not getting a different
loan, a VA
Yep.
loan, or
Yep.
an FHA loan.
Yep.
But it's important how the income is structured prior to that.
Yes, exactly.
That's correct?
That
Okay.
is correct.
Because I thought the same thing. I was like, wait a second.
That's such
No,
a
I
good
get it.
clarification. So these are just average people getting average loans at the
Yeah,
end of
right.
it. There's a few stipulations with that, but ultimately we're looking at whatever normal loan products they are. Where the certification comes in is, in any transaction I do, whether you're buying or selling or refinancing or whatever, divorce or not, my job is to educate, and my job is to advocate for my client, and not just throw them at the cheapest loan option or whatever else. We're
just
going to
shove
talk
them in
about
a-
their goals.
Yeah.
We're going to educate them about options. And so it's the same thing with the divorce, but I've taken the extra steps to be that much more knowledgeable, to be that much more experienced in this particular scenario.
Right.
Am I offering different products than other people? No. I'm just offering a much better comprehensive experience, because divorces suck.
Well,
You need, ideally people have people on their team that are helping them,
Right.
that are giving them good advice when their whole life is up in the air.
Well, and
and that's where the value is.
And like you said, it's not necessarily like, usually the bottom line is the bottom line, like what your spouse is willing to give to you, but it's how it's structured that becomes the most important part for your future potential home purchase. And I think it's interesting because Kaila and I have a video we reference quite frequently in terms of prepping your home for sale. And I just want to, it's like,
So prep your life for divorce.
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
all we want to say.
Like pretty
Well,
much right. Yeah.
But
if you know it's coming,
Yeah.
just like if
Yeah.
you know you're going to buy a house or
Yep.
if you know you're going to sell a house, I mean, I always like to say plan for success, right?
Right,
That's
right.
what we've said that too.
Yeah.
It's
Where-
not. This is not like a moment to moment thing. I think I am divorced. My divorce didn't involve any of this at all, but thankfully, probably because I pre-planned.
Yeah.
But I do think that ultimately there's a very hurried beginning part of the divorce. Like, okay, how are we going to do this? And a lot of that can be very emotional and very reactive.
Very similar to buying a house.
Right. But then there's
quick.
there's a time where things slow down quite a bit. And somewhere in there, at the beginning, you should be talking to Emily, because that slow down part will give you some time to think about how things need to be structured to benefit you in the long run. And it's for both people.
Yep.
Because again, there's going to be an amount that gets paid, generally speaking, and that amount isn't necessarily going to change as much as how it's structured. Whether that's a buyout, whether that's loading. And I'm sorry, you are the expert, and I am going.
No,
off here.
I'm just nodding along. You are absolutely on the right.
Well, at our
Very
meeting, I
there.
think you had said sometimes instead of occasionally receiving one lump sum from a spouse,
Yep.
have that paid out monthly so that you can qualify for more of a mortgage
Yes.
or more of a living situation that you like. So again, the structure being really key. Again, the chunk of money, someone's paying someone this amount no matter what's happening.
Right.
But sometimes how that's set up can really make a difference in what is available to you for your next moves.
Right.
Well, and that's the biggest thing, is that we've talked a little bit about income, but assets as well, depending on how they get divvied up. There's some really cool solutions even with how retirement funds
You
are
were saying
divided.
that. That's so I was like,
Oh yeah, there was
there's-
a special form. for
Yeah.
that,
Yeah,
too.
there's a way even to set up retirement where instead of we're splitting up all our assets 50-50. You get half the house, I get half the house, you get half the retirement, I get that is a way to set up a divorce, is just take everything and cut it in half and we'll take our parts. But another way is potentially to set up where instead of retirement just rolling, your retirement rolls into mine and off I go, we set it up with monthly disbursements. and then I can use it as income. And
Which
that's like a total like, oh my gosh, wow. But like it could be the difference for someone when I'm meeting with them between, yes, we can get you into a house that you like and afford it, or not.
Okay, so does that, okay, so let's talk about like this disbursement. So I want the disbursements for the next year. Okay, after that point, can we change that? Like, I don't want to be dabbling in like.
You don't want to totally deplete your retirement,
Right?
But you'd like to use it to get back on your feet.
Well, if let's say the retirement, we split a $200,000 retirement 401k, right?
Sure.
So I, instead of taking the 100k, my 100k up front, it makes more sense for me to take $5,000 a month. Well, let's say I do that. I qualify for my mortgage. Whoa, I've gotten a new job and life is brilliant. I want to take my remaining $60K and invest it in a lump. Can I do that?
Potentially, you can. I mean, you can.
Okay.
Outside of mortgage guidelines, you can totally do that.
Okay.
Yeah. But in terms of mortgage guidelines, that's another piece of this is why you should come talk to me, is that sounds really good. But one of the requirements for most mortgages is that whatever kind of income you have, whether it's a job or a disbursement, is you have to have a 3-year continuance.
Okay.
You have to have a minimum of 3 years of income of any sort, really. That applies to things well outside of divorces. But in your scenario, you're getting money for a year.
Yeah.
I can't use any of it.
Okay.
You can. I mean, obviously, it will be money you're actually getting in, and that could be really helpful to you. But in terms of qualifying for a mortgage, I likely can't use it.
Okay.
Same rule for child support. Same rule for spousal maintenance. So let's say we have a pair of twins together and they're 16.
Oh boy.
And I'm going to get child support from you. I know, I'm taking the
because
twins
it's very expensive.
and I'm going to get a fair amount of
They
money
both
from
want
you.
their own car.
Yeah. I've got a lot of expenses over the next couple of years. They're heading off to college, they're whatever. I'm going to get a fair amount from you for the next 2 years until they're 18.
Yeah.
I can't use any of it because they're
It's
only
not
18.
3 years.
If we set up our divorce decree to be through the age of 25 until they graduate from college with a bachelor's degree, or like a divorce decree is how you write it.
Yep.
I mean, or how your
So
attorney
again,
helps you write
seeing
it. So
you is so crucial in understanding what is the best, I guess, structure for me and my family for the next number of years, not just how do we get divorced and move on.
Exactly.
How do we set up what life will be like for everybody in the next few years.
And we, sorry,
please.
Basically, again, my job is to say things like, did you know I need 3 years worth of this income in order to use it? I'm not going to insert myself into your divorce decree. I'm going to give you the tools you need in order to negotiate with your spouse and any attorneys involved in order to set you up for success. Because what if you take a little less each month for longer versus a lot for a shorter amount of time? You get the same amount of money. Your spouse doesn't care because they're giving you the same amount either way. But if we set it up for a little bit less for 4 years, then all of a sudden I have income I can use.
Yeah.
I have so many questions are running through my head. Okay, so the spouse should be happy to pay you less over a longer period because they can hold it and earn interest on it. But technically, they probably shouldn't be holding it.
Depends on what the divorce decree says, right?
Yeah,
Like
if it's agreed upon that it's being dispersed out of their retirement account.
So again, you can almost come up with a win-win scenario for
potentially to
people depending on
every divorce is so different, and that's where that conversation comes in, because some people are really looking for ways to have a clean break from their ex as well. And so sometimes I'll say things like, hey, what if we spread this out for 5 years? And they say, I can only stand this for the next 18 months until I get the boys, graduate the twins out of the house, for our example. And so, again, my job is to say, did you know this?
Yeah.
And they're ultimately going to take that and fit it into the bigger picture of their divorce.
Right.
And ultimately decide if they'd like to, if that's worth it to them. And I can give them information about, here's how much we can qualify for without that income, and here's how much we can qualify for with that income. And then they're that much more educated. Yeah. Then when they go to negotiate with their spouse about how it's all going to look, they're armed with what will actually
Knowledge.
mean to agree to these terms versus these. They're going to know what they're choosing instead of just kind of a lot of a divorce otherwise is kind of just agreeing to what doesn't sound too bad, or like without that information in hand, you're kind of just
well, you're almost agreeing to terms that you can't see how they will impact you in the future.
Right.
If you don't have this knowledge, you might not be prepared for, again, something that could harm you in the future.
Yeah.
That could have potentially easily been negotiated.
if we just set it up this way, it would have changed things significantly.
I think that this is I absolutely love this because Emily, quite frankly, this is a service outside of lending that you're providing.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it does affects your ability to help these people. It is wholly not about any specific loan or anything like that.
Yeah.
So this is pretty cool. I'm very excited that Emily agreed to do this with us because I think it's really important. Unfortunately, there is a lot of divorce.
And I mean, I've been doing real estate for 8 years now. I've never ever heard of any sort of certified divorce lawyer before Emily came and visited us. Kathy, have you?
No. And
20, and how long have you been doing it? 20
plus
years. So it's a really cool
22 or 20.
and very very much needed when you need this service. Take advantage of it.
Well, and I think that this is invaluable. I really appreciate you sharing this information. Now, did we forget any of our questions?
I don't think so. I think we've hit it. Well, I mean, we've kind of talked about what happens if someone doesn't use a certified divorce lender, and it just sounds like, they can be limited in the future potentially. Would you?
Yeah, it could. I mean,
You're
like
a renter
you
instead of a
said,
homeowner.
you've never been aware that there's somebody like me out there adding that extra value, right? So obviously, people are still getting divorces and fumbling their way through. I mean, to a certain extent, it's still people are managing to land in one way or another.
Yeah.
And I think my goal with any client, divorce or not, is we want it to be smooth. We want it to be a great experience. And great experience and divorce don't usually wind up in the same sentence as one another. And so ultimately, I think that's more the answer to the question, which is yes, people can probably come up with something, and they obviously do. But if we can make it great for them, why wouldn't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or less painful. It's kind of how we talk about
where you have a positive outcome at the end.
Yeah.
At a minimum. Even if the journey to get there is a hard one, if you still wind up with something that's great housing for you with a payment that you're okay with taking on, being a single income household all of a sudden, all of those things, if they can be as good as they can be, that's our goal, I think.
Yeah. No, this is invaluable. The last thing that I would say is I was thinking what are the top 3 things that you would advise somebody to do? But maybe it's just one. Maybe it's more important than a great attorney. This money needs to be, whatever money I get has to be set up a certain way. So maybe seeing you is number 1 versus even getting the great attorney. Because with that information, you can guide your attorney to help structure your settlement.
Well, and I think Emily can even help prior to that because, I mean, it's free. I mean, I know you'd love to close a loan with someone, but I mean, we talk about it all the time, and I'm sorry to put it out there, but I do feel like it's don't be afraid to just call her because it's not a service you charge for.
I'm not billing by the hour like an attorney. I'm like you guys.
Yeah.
I get paid if I do a loan, if we close something together, and ideally we'll build up trust with one another, and you'll have a great experience where we'll work together when it comes time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I would hope.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you always want to earn someone's business.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, it is. I just can't believe it's. It's a service that you have. It's so awesome.
Hanging out here with information.
So hopefully this is valuable to everybody watching this video. Or I shouldn't say that. Let's hope it's to those of you that are watching this video that may be considering divorce.
Yep. Absolutely.
Not necessarily everybody across the board.
And Emily does do other. Right, she does other loans other than just certified divorce, which again we've said is not a loan program. But we will talk about those in our next video. Yeah. So be sure to like and subscribe our channels and follow along for more. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, thanks.